Hello, so today we pulled out our white beans and ham. Then I'm going to do an individual serving and some cornbread experiment that I had done. I've done it a couple ways, we'll go over that. And then I had an extra tray empty, so I decided to try some beets because Betty from Betty's Harvest Right Freeze Dryers group on Facebook said that beets were really good, so I wanted to try those. And what I'm going to do with these white beans, what I did was I cooked them with ham, and I bought a chunk of nice looking smoked ham, and I thought it was a chunk of ham, and it turned out that it was sliced ham. So I just put that in my crock pot with my beans and cooked those up. And this is what we ended up with. It looks like, yeah, they didn't hold together too well, which is alright. I just got to be careful scooping them out, because I'm doing these in individual servings. What I'm going to do, we're going to try this out later. I'm going to put a couple of pieces of cornbread in with this. This is cornbread that I cooked in a 7 by 11 pan, and this I tried in my silicone molds. I do not recommend cooking these in your silicone molds. They discolored my molds, and I'm not happy about that because they weren't cheap. But I don't want to waste the cornbread, so I'm going to put some in there. And I would not recommend that, using your silicone molds. This cut up pretty nicely. I just baked it, and then when it was halfway cooled down, I cut it into little squares, and then we froze it solid and put it into the freeze dryer. So what I'm going to do is I'm not really going to zip tie that shut, but I'm going to try and put this in with the individual serving, like that, and we'll rehydrate that in a minute and see how that looks, how that turns out. Okay, and the last one here going in. Get all that extra flavor out of the tray on that one. Whoever gets that one's going to be real happy. Okay. Put my cornbread in my baggie. Don't zip lock it shut. Just kind of roll it up. Alright, there you go. Now let's get some O2s in there. Okay, so we got an O2 in there, some cornbread and some beans. So I'm going to zip lock them shut. Like that. And then I'm going to, after I do that, we'll heat seal them. Okay, try this again. Me and my camera. I thought I was recording. So I ended up with 12 bags, and I've heat sealed those, zip locked them with the O2 absorber in there, and then ran a heat seal along the top. And 12 bags, those will go in my long-term storage. This one, I didn't do the heat seal. This is my sample bag. I pulled the croutons out, I thought was on camera, but basically that's just stuffed in the top. So I opened the bag like that, pulled my O2 out, and then pulled these out, and then put half a cup of water in there and ziplocked it shut. And see these little dimples right here? That's why you want 7 mils, because that probably would have poked through on a thinner bag. Plus, these 7 mils will hold that hot water, boiling water almost, straight from the Keurig on your hot coffee, and that holds it really well. So I just poured that in. I'm letting that soak for about a minute, not long. I put half a cup in there. Basically, I covered the beans, made them a little bit moist, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open this up. I'm going to take my cornbread. This is an experiment. I ain't done this before. Guys, I figure the worst case scenario is I'll get crunchy cornbread. Best case scenario, I'll get moist cornbread with my beans. So I'm going to put those back in there. Fill that up again. Give it a little shake. So any excess water that's in there is going to hit that cornbread. Let that sit for a minute. We'll see what happens. Okay, so that's been a minute. I'm going to open this up and just see what happened to my... Oh yeah, that's looking good. Cornbread is still a little bit crunchy. I can tell that. We're giving it a stir here. Okay. See that in there? I might have to put a little bit more water in there. I think I will, because it's a little bit dry. Tastes good though. Okay. So what I would do in the field, I would just eat that right out of the pack. But I want to see what it looks like in here, so we're going to dump it in my bowl. Get all that goodness out of there. I hate wasting those Mylar bags, but it really don't show you how it works if you don't. Plus, I like to see how much water I got to add. Okay, the cornbread does stay croutony. Add a little bit more water to that. Oh yeah, cornbread softening up. You're not going to get that totally to soften up without crumbling all up. There you have it. Beans and cornbread. Now, that is absolutely delicious. I love beans cooked in a slow cooker. I didn't actually show the video of this, of my bean recipe, which isn't my recipe. It's one I got offline, but you cook your beans any way you want. But I will leave the link to the recipe I used, and I followed that recipe to the T. Except for they called for I believe it was a 1.5 pounds of a ham hock, which is notoriously fat, and you do not want fat in this, so I used 1.5 pounds of lean smoked ham. But I'm telling you, this is absolutely delicious. That cornbread, see how that, I mean, soft and moist on the outside, a little bit of a crunch on the inside, which is really nice. Doesn't detract from it at all. And that it crumbled up in my beans when I rehydrated actually adds a nice texture to the beans. How's that look? Let me tell you, it tastes good. Really, really good. I'm super happy with this. Let's see, what else can I tell you? The cornbread, I decided the best way to do it is just basically cook it in your pan. I spread it out thinner than you would for a nice thick cornbread. So you were supposed to use, like, I think it's 8x8 pan, and I used a 7x11, a little bit more square inches, so that it would come out thinner, which makes it easier to pack up in the bags. It worked out perfect. Tip one, don't try cooking them in your silicone molds. I didn't ruin my silicone molds, but they're all discolored and look browned and burnt. So I'm not too happy with that. And plus, they were really hard to clean. And I put sugary stuff in my silicone molds and all kinds of stuff, and they've always cleaned up nicely. But baking with them, that's a no-no. That didn't work. But I still saved the cornbread, and I used that in my bags that I made with it. It actually kind of burnt the cornbread too on the bottom. So just stick with your tin that you use, you know, your pan that you make cornbread in. But I would say make it a little bit thinner than what you would normally do for a nice thick square of cornbread. This is really good. It's really filling the spot. A long hard day at work. Come home. Grab one of these pouches, cut her open, pull the cornbread out, add 3/4 of a cup of water. Let that sit for a minute or two. Then throw your cornbread in there, give it a good shake. Then if you don't want to wash dishes, just open it up after a minute, give it a good stir and eat it right from the bag. Or if you don't mind dishes, I don't like doing dishes, pour it into a bowl or your plate and eat it that way. Really, really good. The ham came out really nice. Like I mentioned before, when I bought the ham, it was a pretty expensive little chunk of ham. It was like 2.5 pounds. Let me show you what I got left. That's what I got left, and it's a smoked ham. And it was a big chunk, and I thought it was a chunked ham, and I was going to cut it in cubes. But I opened the package, and it was sliced. And actually, sliced worked out better because sliced ham rehydrate much better than a square cube ham, I bet. In any case, it did in this. That is really good. The cornbread flavor is in there. Some of the chunkier pieces of cornbread, like that one, it's kind of, I won't say hard, break your teeth, but it's got a little texture into it. This is delicious. I'll definitely be making some more of these for my long-term storage. I bought, the recipe was for only 1 pound of dried beans. I could have got away with doing 2 pounds in my crock pot because 1 pound actually filled 2 trays. But I wanted a tray for my cornbread anyway in the freeze dryer. And then I had a spare tray, and I threw some beets in that. But probably the ideal thing is just make up a bunch of cornbread, because I got other ideas for the cornbread too. And then do a full freezer load of the beans. White beans and cornbread. Delicious. I hope you enjoyed the video, And if you did, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.